From Hollywood, it is the Newlyweds game. The bright lights of the studio shone down on the stage as the audience cheered for the arrival of today's newlyweds. The atmosphere was filled with excitement and the sweet scent of new beginnings. First to be introduced were Laura and Pablo Shimizu, a couple who had celebrated their marriage 19 months ago. They were followed by Yvonne and David Mayhew, who had said their I do's just 1 month ago, still basking in the glow of their very recent wedding. Then came Ingrid and Yves Yalouz, who had tied the knot 18 months ago. Finally, the stage was graced by Heidi and Rains Jackson, who had exchanged rings 15 months ago. The star of the Newlywed Game, Bob Eubanks, stepped into the spotlight with a warm smile. He thanked everybody and welcomed the couples to the show, asking how they were doing. The couples responded with great enthusiasm. Bob asked if they were ready to play the game, and a chorus of yes followed. He then asked the ladies to do him a big favor and go off to the soundproof room. While the wives were away, Bob reminded the gentlemen that in round 1, they would be asked some 5-point questions. He explained that if their wife's answer matched their prediction, they would earn 5 points. Each correct prediction would bring them closer to a fabulous second honeymoon. Bob then introduced a special guest segment to start the round. He called out Victoria and Earl to come out for just a moment. He introduced the husbands to Victoria and Earl, pointing out which one was Victoria and which one was Earl. The husbands looked on with surprise and amusement. Bob posed the first question to the husbands. He asked if they were out of the picture and their wife had to choose another lover, who she would say she would pick, Victoria or Earl. He reminded them that privacy was not an option. Rains was the first to answer, saying his wife would definitely pick Victoria. He admitted it was unfortunate, but he was sure of her choice. David disagreed, saying his wife would pick Earl. Pablo felt confident that his wife would pick Victoria. Yves was equally certain, stating there was not even a doubt that his wife would choose Victoria. The next question turned toward artistic expression. Bob asked the husbands to imagine if a famous artist, such as Salvador Dali, were to paint a portrait of their wife for future generations. He wanted to know what 2 different objects their wife would say the husband suggested she hold in her hands. David suggested a computer mouse in one hand and a keyboard in the other. Pablo envisioned his wife with a candle in one hand and a wine glass in the other. Yves predicted his wife would be holding a mirror in one hand and tweezers in the other to pluck her eyebrows. Rains believed his wife would hold a remote control in one hand because she controls the television 100%, and a Nintendo controller in the other hand. The third question of the round focused on a single word. Bob asked the husbands how their wives would complete a sentence describing their sex drive. Pablo chose the word fast. Yves chose the word wild. Rains described it as moody. David simply said totally. With those predictions recorded, the show went to a break, promising to reunite the newlyweds and see how well the husbands had predicted their wives' answers. When the show returned, the wives were back on stage. Bob explained that each match would earn the couple 5 points. He noticed Yvonne taking a deep breath and joked about her being nervous. He brought Victoria and Earl out once more to reveal the answers to the first question. He asked the ladies who they would pick as a lover if their husband was out of the picture. Ingrid chose Victoria, matching Yves' prediction. Laura also chose Victoria, which matched Pablo's prediction. However, Yvonne chose Victoria, while David had predicted she would pick Earl because Earl is a man. Heidi chose Earl, stating she liked men, which contradicted Rains's prediction of Victoria. The second question about the portrait was then addressed. Laura said she would probably be holding a book and her glasses. This did not match Pablo's prediction of a candle and wine glass. Yvonne said she would hold grapes and Pepsi, which was different from David's prediction of a computer mouse and keyboard. Heidi suggested a koala bear because of where she was from and a television. Rains had been close with his prediction of a remote and Nintendo controller. Ingrid said she would hold their cat named Figaro and her favorite flowers, Casablanca lilies. Yves had predicted a mirror and tweezers. The final 5-point question regarding the one-word description of their sex drive followed. Yvonne said slow, while David had predicted totally. Heidi said wonderful, but Rains had predicted moody, mentioning that sometimes she kicks him out. Ingrid said hot, which was close to Yves' prediction of wild. Laura said more, while Pablo had predicted fast. As the game moved into the next phase, the husbands were secluded offstage. Bob jokingly mentioned male strippers to the wives before getting down to business. In this round, each question was worth 10 points. The first question for the wives was about a one-bedroom fantasy they had acted out but realized should have remained just a fantasy. Laura mentioned playing prince and princess. Ingrid recalled dressing as Romans with grapes and a leopard skin towel. Heidi talked about a fantasy at her husband's place of work on a military ship. Yvonne shared that her husband had played a Chippendale dancer for her. The next question asked which beauty product of theirs the husband secretly used. Ingrid named her Aveda lotion. Heidi said her body wash. Yvonne mentioned her hair gel. Laura simply said her girl lotion for her arms. For a 25-point bonus question, the wives were asked to name their husband's favorite brand of soft drink. Heidi and Yvonne both said Pepsi. Laura said Coke. Ingrid said Diet Pepsi. The husbands returned to the stage for the final reveal. Bob greeted them and began checking their answers. For the bedroom fantasy question, David said he was Tarzan, but Yvonne had said Chippendale. Rains guessed a policeman, while Heidi had described the ship incident. Eve recalled dressing in leather like Betty Boop, but Ingrid had remembered the Roman theme. Pablo guessed a dancer with nothing on, but Laura had remembered the prince and princess fantasy. On the topic of beauty products, Rains guessed a facial cleaner, but Heidi had said body wash. Eve guessed body wash, but Ingrid had said lotion. Pablo guessed shampoo, but Laura had said skin lotion. David guessed skin lotion, but Yvonne had said hair gel. The tension rose as they reached the 25-point bonus question. Before the final answers, the prize was announced as a trip to Mexico to stay at the Hotel Cabo San Lucas. David correctly guessed Pepsi, putting his couple in the lead. Rains guessed Coke, but Heidi had said Pepsi. Eve guessed Pepsi, but Ingrid had said Diet Pepsi. Finally, Pablo guessed Coke, which matched Laura's answer perfectly. With 30 points, Pablo and Laura Shimizu were declared the grand prize winners of the Newlywed Game. Bob Eubanks thanked the couples and the audience, closing the show with his signature warmth as the credits began to roll on another day of laughter and love in Hollywood.